Says we're streaming live on Facebook.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. And thank you, Chris, so much for joining us today. Super jazzed about what we get to talk about today. So as many of you know, Chris, we've been working with for over a year now. We hired him to help us fine tune our message and really get intentional about the story of our doTERRA journey, how we got here. And what we uncovered in the process was it's so much more than just like how to be a clever storyteller. Like what we discovered was this well of purpose and passion. And it all stemmed from our whole life experience. Like everything that had happened up until then pointed to, oh, this is why I'm so passionate about what I do. Like it all just made so much sense. And what's funny, we started that process about a year ago. And ever since then, we continue to find more and more pieces of evidence of why it all just makes sense. Like, why is it that even though we keep having struggles and hard things and there's massive resistance, and especially right now, right? Like, has there ever been a crazier time to be alive? And yet, like, we just still feel called to this. So I'm super grateful. And Natalie and I just want to thank you, Chris, for the clarity that you've offered to us in this process. You founded the Campfire Effect, I think over 6 years ago. You've helped thousands of entrepreneurs just get clear on their message and their mission and their movement. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to you, Chris.
Well, thank you so much. Like, I love Andy and Natalie Goddard, as probably most of you do. I'm team Goddard over here. And every time I have done any type of training or had the privilege of working with their organization, literally every time I text them afterwards, I'm like, man, your team is so amazing. And they're like, yeah, we know, because I tell them every single time. I believe that right now is more important than ever in the history of our lives to share our stories and our messages. And next week, I'm going to be doing a training on how to lead in times of uncertainty. But the connection is that I believe that your story and your message is your declaration of your leadership. Like the story and the message that you share is your declaration of your commitment as a leader and like how you're going to show up. And the world is starving for leadership. And the opportunity that we have to deliver it to them is in the form of our stories and our messages. Like we have an opportunity to demonstrate leadership and share leadership through our stories and our messages. And quite frankly, I just don't believe that any of us, myself included, are doing enough. Like, and I'm putting out more content than I've ever put out. And I believe all of us should be putting more content out than we've ever put out, because we have something that can make a real difference for people. As entrepreneurs, especially, those of you in doTERRA, which is everyone on this call, you have a real special gift to offer the world. And it's funny, I was asked by one of my clients yesterday to do a 3 to 5 minute audio recording. She's assembling all these audio recordings for a podcast. And in the audio recording, she asked us to talk about what's something that has surprised yourself? Like what's something that surprised you this week about yourself? And I said, I don't know that surprised me. But one of the things that I really realized about myself this last week is how strong I really am. Like I occur for myself as someone that can really make a difference in times like this. And I almost think that, the loss of 2 brothers, the loss of my nephew, having a sister in prison right now, having another immediate family member really struggling with mental health, all the challenges I've gone through in my own family and fighting for our marriage and like creating what we have and creating a family brand with our family values, like all of it has prepared me to really show up and make a huge difference in the world right now. And I believe that for all of us, and that's what I want you to just kind of really consider is that how can I be sharing my message right now in these times of uncertainty, and what message to share? And I also believe that growth comes out of times of uncertainty. Like my desire for all of you is not that you look back on this, because we will get through this, but to not look back on it like that, to not look back and say like, oh, I'm so glad we got through that, or I'm so glad we survived that, but to actually look back on this time and say like, look what I created with my family. Look at what I created in my business. Look at who I was as a leader. Look at how I led. And in 1606, a plague swept through England. and an author was quarantined to his home. And in that time of quarantine, he just so happened to write Macbeth, King Lear, and Antony and Cleopatra. And that was Shakespeare. In 1665, the Great Plague of London took place, and Cambridge University was forced to close, and a young student was sent home. And in his home, while quarantined, he came up with calculus and the ideas that would later become his theory of gravitativity, Isaac Newton. The electric razor, the car radio, the chocolate chip cookie, macaroni and cheese, and many other things, the thing they all have in common is they were created during the Great Depression. So times of uncertainty create the greatest opportunities for growth and creation and leadership. Like, that's what it really creates. Like, I'm realizing all of it boils down to leadership, and the world is starving for it right now. And what's interesting about this idea of your message is that there's the message that you're going to go out and tell, which is one thing, but then there's also this idea of the message of who are you going to be as the demonstration of that message. And whatever it is that we go out and declare with our message, that's what we've then signed ourselves up for as the leaders and who we're going to be as leaders. The thing that I really am seeing right now is that differentiation and specialization is far more important in times of uncertainty than in times of prosperity. Because in times of prosperity, when things are stable and the markets are good and the economy's going well, quite frankly, like, if you're just willing to work hard and get out and hustle, you're probably going to do pretty well. But in times of uncertainty, that's when differentiation and specialization matters more than ever. It's kind of like in 2005, 6, and 7, I was in commercial real estate and I thought I was a genius. And then I was shocked to find out that everyone was a genius in real estate in 2005, 2006, and 7. It probably had more to do with just the economy and the markets than it did with maybe me. But it was in times of like 2008 and 2009, that's where it's really like, who are you really? Like, how are you really going to lead? And how are you really going to differentiate yourself? And so the thing that I've realized is we've served hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs and organizations, maybe into the thousands, helping them develop their authentic story and their message over the years. And what I realized is there's something really profound about every origin story or every founder story that I've ever heard. There was one common characteristic amongst all of those stories, and I'm going to actually ask you guys if you can guess what it is. If anyone wants to share here in the chat, I'd love for you to share what it is you think that's common amongst all of our stories, our founder stories, our kind of our origin stories. Adversity. Absolutely. Like, there's never been someone's story that I've listened to that didn't have some element of adversity, trials and challenges, but also overcoming that. And I believe that now your origin story, your authentic personal story, is more important to be told than it ever has been, because your story highlights the human spirit of facing adversities, facing challenges, facing trials, and then yet overcoming, and not just overcoming, but growing as a result. And every single one of you has that story or multiple of those stories that are waiting to be told. And so the thing I want you to consider here today is how you can use your origin story to inspire hope, healing, and inspiration to your team, as well as to your customers, and why you should be putting out more content than ever in the history of the world. And so here's what I want all of you to consider for a second. And I want to bring some of you on live. Anyone that's willing to raise their hand, and Natalie and Andy, if we can bring a few people on live, I'd love to actually just dive in and help you see the power of just how powerful of a story that you have to share, and really be considering, like, how can I share my story and my message in a way that creates hope, healing, and inspiration, and who am I going to be as a leader in the telling of this story? And what the thing that I loved about what Andy said is, Andy said, this isn't just, the process we take people through, it isn't just about like taglines and cute messaging statements and positioning statements. This is really about recognizing that you are the author of your story, and that this is an amazing opportunity to pick up the pen and really define who you're going to be and write the next chapter. And I believe that what the world has served up to us is a massive pick up the pen moment. Like, it's in times like this where we really see who we're going to be as the author of our story and what it is we're going to author next. And so what I want to ask, I want to challenge all of you guys to do, and then we're going to take Teresa because she jumped on, is I want all of you to identify at least one story, maybe multiple, but at least one story of a time in your past where you faced some type of challenge that you didn't think you could overcome, or you had serious doubts about your ability to overcome it. It can be physically, mentally, relationally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. But what was a challenge that you faced that you didn't think you could overcome? I want to give all of you just a minute to identify that story. And then we're actually going to take Teresa on and work through hers live. Okay. Now, you don't have to write it out in detail yet, but I want you just to identify that one story. Now, the second thing I want you to consider is, what did it feel like when you were in that place? Not the overcoming, not the other side of it, but when you were still on this side, the challenge side, what did it feel like? Like, describe and write out some of the emotions and the feelings of what that felt like to be in that place. Okay, the third thing I want you to do is I want you to describe what it is you did to overcome it. And if it's things you did on your own, write that down. If there was someone else that was instrumental in helping you, then put them in the story. But so we have, what was the challenge you didn't think you could overcome? What did that feel like in the moment you were in it? Go back and revisit those feelings. Third, how did you overcome it? And then the fourth thing I want you to write down is, what did you realize about yourself when you did overcome it? Like, when you overcame it and got to the other side of it, what did you realize about yourself? Teresa, are you game to do this live with me? If we can take you off mute and show your camera.
Yes. Oh, do I have to show my camera?
Can you?
I can't. Let me grab a hat. Hold on.
That's what I love about like, hey, everyone has a, everyone gets a big grant of a pass, like, to be casual, obviously.
Okay, I'm taking
Casual Friday.
Okay.
What's that, Andy?
Every day is Casual Friday.
Yeah, Casual Friday. It's casual every day.
Wait, okay. So let's see if I'm on here. Okay.
Let me see. I can hear you. I can't see it yet.
Oh, darn. Okay.
There you are.
Hi.
Hey, Teresa. Thank you for jumping on. Hey, we're matching on the black hats. Okay. What was a story you identified, Teresa, or a time where you faced something like, tell us that. What was the thing you faced that you really didn't believe you could overcome at that time?
I have overcome so much. And I always kind of thought I was the wing beneath everybody else's wings, that I didn't have enough value to be that person on my own. And, you know, just from childhood, right? And so then, and I married this amazing man. And when he passed away, which was a long time ago, but you'll always cry about it. I just thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. You know, I was able to support him in being all the things that he was, but I couldn't do this on my own. He was the best parent. He was the income earner. He was the one who took care of everything. And I lived the life of, you know, I just loved him and was so thankful for him because of all he did for me. So when he died, I didn't think I could do it on my own.
Wow.
Right?
Thank you for sharing that. How long ago was that, Teresa?
It will be 8 years in May. Yeah.
Wow. How many children did you have at the time?
2. They were 11 and 13.
So you went from having a partner in your life, partner in your family, main income earner, to all of it's on you.
Yep. Yeah.
What?
He was really the rock for me. He was our rock, you know, and
Yeah.
he was the one that held us all up. So yeah.
What did it feel like in that time? Like, if you go back and revisit those feelings and those emotions, what was present for you?
I did not see a way out. The only way out that I had planned was right now at this time when my kids were 19 and 21, that my son's in the other room, so you can probably hear me, but I was going to kill myself. I was going to get my kids to the point where they could be out with somebody else and happy, and I was out of here.
So, I mean, I'm probably like hopeless, right? Like
Completely hopeless. There's just getting through until I could be done.
yeah, like there's only been one time in my life I can say I've experienced hopelessness, and that's when my wife and I were separated. We had two beautiful little boys. We were gonna get divorced. Like we weren't separated, gonna work it out. We were separated, gonna get divorced. And I literally, it was the first time in my life I felt like I was in a brick room with no doors and no windows.
Oh,
like I'd never, I had experienced some discouragement, like we all have, but I had never gotten to a place of hopelessness, just trapped, like no possibility, right?
Yeah.
And for those of all of us, most of us probably been there at one point in time. It's like, you remember what that was like. So before I dive into that, then the next piece is like, so how did you start to overcome it? Like, did a person, a thing, a thought, like what came into your life that helped you start to overcome this? And I'm not saying that any of us have actually fully, completely overcome, but we've obviously gotten to some aspect to the other side of it. Like what helped you overcome it?
There was a person who invited me to go to something and to go to a seminar. And I went. It's like I didn't want to go, but I said yes, and I almost didn't go. But going there, it was like when I went in there, I realized this is what I need, and this is the hope. And I like completely immersed myself in it. And it was personal growth, change, mentoring. It allowed me to overcome a lot of things. I had a lot of weight on my body. I was really close to having gastric bypass surgery. It allowed me to release weight and be healthy and to start getting certifications as health coach, life coach, things like that. It just like flipped my whole life. And I had to start using these things. Yeah. And I had to start using these things. I didn't believe any of these things that they taught me to do, but I believed in my mentor, and he told me, to do these things, like look in the mirror and say, you're beautiful and you have value. And I would think, you're just lying to yourself right now, Teresa, but just go ahead and lie to yourself. So I would do it. And it worked. Changed my life.
Okay. Teresa, this is so profound. Like what it is you're touching on, because the very thing that you did to change your life and change the way you saw yourself was you used language on yourself. It was like you used language that at first you didn't even believe it. Like you felt like a fraud doing it, but you would use the language anyways. But then every time you spoke the language, see, here's what I believe about language. And this is why, guys, our story and our messages need to be out in the world healing people now more than ever, because the way I see language and story and messaging is you speak it out into the world, and then it becomes energy. It becomes a real thing that's out there that then has an opportunity to create you into it. So a lot of times the thing you speak, you don't even maybe completely believe it yet, but you have to speak it so that it can create you into it. But imagine if all of us were doing that now with our stories every day and sharing more of our stories, we would continue to create ourselves into it more, and we would find more healing for ourselves, but it would also grant that for other people. And what I believe is every time you tell your story, you enroll yourself in it. Like, before we can go out and powerfully enroll other people into our business or into our mission, we have to enroll ourselves, right? And so if I go back and I just look at this beautiful little framework that Teresa's just revealed, there's a little story framework in there, and it's when my husband passed away 8 years ago, I lost all hope. He was the main income earner. He was an amazing husband and father and parent. Most importantly, he was my rock. He was my everything. And when I lost him, I lost all hope. I found myself in a complete state of hopelessness and having suicidal thoughts, and was gaining weight to the point of almost having a gastric bypass surgery. And luckily enough for me, someone came into my life and invited me to come to an event. And I went to this event, and it was the first time in a long time that I was willing to really dive in and confront a lot of these things about myself. But it was also the first time in my life I started to see some hope or some possibility that maybe things could get better. And so through a combination of personal development, daily positive affirmations of saying nice things to myself about myself, and taking control of my health, I started to experience more hope. And I started to love myself again. And I started realizing I had worth and I had something to offer. And so what I realized out of that process is that I'm a strong, powerful person that can overcome things. And I believe that you are a strong, powerful person that can overcome things, whoever's out there listening to this message. And I can teach you how to do it through personal development, the language you speak to yourself, and taking control of your health.
Yeah, I actually, when you talked about the words, I wrote down all the things, I wrote down all the things. I imagined my house. I talked about the people that I was around, who my friends were. I talked about just everything. And then I watched it all come into play. And I still battle it super hard because it's like the old me and the new me. Like when I try to, like I pushed myself today, this morning, and the old stuff and the new stuff, and it's like a battle back and forth, and just, so it's really important to just keep moving forward and that new story that you write about yourself. So it's really helped.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you're the author, you got the pen, you can pick it up. Right. But here's the thing. How many people are on your, like, do you have some leaders on your team, Teresa? Do you have some people like that you, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm getting some.
That's awesome. They, I can promise you, will be changed forever by that story if you have the courage to share it with them. Because in that story, think about what's in that story. In that story, a struggle and challenge that I can relate to. See, the reason why we see a lot of people want to just talk about like the overcoming part of the story, but a lot of us don't want to go back and revisit the hard part. And I get why, because it brings up all these emotions. But here's what I want you guys to really hear what I'm about to say about story. People do not connect human connection. Human connection does not happen with the triumph part of our story. Human connection doesn't happen with what we can do for them part of our story. Human connection does not happen when we tell them the story of our solution. When we talk about our triumph, when we talk about our solution, when we talk about what we can do for them, that creates hope and confidence. Well, so, okay, so then where does the human connection come in, which is the most important piece? It's in our story of struggle. The connection with other people gets created in our story of struggle. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can connect with struggle. I've been through it. Maybe not exactly like yours, but the minute you told your story, it immediately reminded my own of like feeling hopeless, right? That's connection. Like I'm connected to you now because it's like, wow. Like, and so that's why when you guys go back and revisit the story, like a time in your life where you faced a challenge you didn't think you could overcome, I want you to also revisit the emotions that you felt at the time and then share that in the story, because it's in the sharing of the emotions where people realize like, I feel the same way, or I felt the same way. So your story allows me to feel seen and heard and understood by you. Does that make sense? So I'm really connected to you. So now when you go to talk to me about what you can do for me, personal development, daily affirmations, language, my health, I'll actually listen and believe it because I feel connected to you. But if you don't do anything to create the human connection and you jump right to your solution and what you can do for me and all these cool things that you've done, I'm like, good for her. I can't relate to that. Is this making sense? It's like, gosh, I know that it's hard. That's the hardest part of the story to go retell, but it's also the most courageous, and it's the part of the story that serves people the most. And you've given us a beautiful demonstration here, Teresa. And so my challenge to you would be now, I've started this challenge on Facebook called #My Overcoming Story Challenge, where I'm challenging as many entrepreneurs as possible to go out and share this exact thing. A time in your life when you faced something you didn't think you could overcome. How did it feel? What did you do to overcome it? And what did you realize about yourself? So I'll ask you, Teresa, like, what did you realize about yourself? Like, and here's the thing, like you said, the old stories still want to come up. It doesn't mean we're perfect in this. It's not about being perfect. It's about we're committed to the journey, right? So I want to know, though, when you went through this and got to the other side of it, and you looked back and were like, wow, like, what did you realize about Teresa?
Well, and I'm still in it, but just when I first started getting out of the house, because I was afraid to even get out of the house, to start to share, to be a coach and everything, I finally fixed myself inside of the house where I liked myself at home, but I was really kind of a shut-in. And then I started going out. So I would go out and I would get around people and I would go, all the old stuff. You're better than me. You're better than me. You're better than me. And then I would just like go home and cry. It still makes me feel sad. And then I would go, but I've got to do it. Like, I have to do it now. Like, I'm the only one that will do it, is me. So then I would go back again and do it. And the more I went back, the more I realized, wait a minute, people are really nice and they want to help and they like me. Like, people like me, and there's lots of opportunity in the world. So I realized about myself that I can connect with people, that I can do hard things, that I can make a difference. And I'm still in that struggle. But I'm like at this place where I never could have ever imagined being ever in my life. And I love my life now. Like, now I love life, and I'm excited about life, and excited about all the possibilities and the challenges. And I like myself now so much more than when I had my husband, who was like the best thing in the whole world. 8 years, I'll still cry. The best man in the whole world. And I wish I could have him. And now I see, like, oh, I lost him because he made my life way too easy. And so now I get to learn and grow and become. So I like that, as hard as it is.
Yeah.
But I sometimes don't like it. Like, just where's my pile of money? Like, why can't I? But,
Yeah.
you know.
But go back
So
and listen, like, to this recording, Teresa, what you just said. Like, I realized about myself, I realized I can connect with people. I realized I can do hard things. I realized I can make a difference for other people. I realized I can get through anything. See, like, and in times like this, the reason I'm encouraging all of you go back to revisit your story is first and foremost for you. Because in times like this, that's where it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that we make a difference. It's easy to forget that we can do hard things. It's easy to forget how powerful and amazing we are. And look, as human beings, we are experts at finding evidence for whatever it is we want to find. So if I'm Teresa and I want to go find all the evidence and the reasons why I don't matter and I don't make a difference and I'm not good at connecting, like, could you find evidence for all of that if you wanted to, Teresa?
Yep.
Yeah. So could I in my own life. But if I also said, hey, Teresa, I want you to go back and look at your past and find all the evidence for why you're amazing, why you matter, why you make a difference, why you're an overcomer, why you're a fighter, you could find evidence for that. And I'm just saying, in a time like this, we need to be looking for the evidence. Like, I want you guys looking to your past for the evidence of why you matter and why you're an overcomer. And I want you to be looking to the future for what you're committed to creating. And here's why. In times of uncertainty, I tell me if you guys relate to this. I noticed this week this really interesting connection between uncertainty and guilt and shame. I believe a lot of people are experiencing a tremendous amount of guilt and shame right now in the world because of the uncertainty. And the connection is there's so much fear and uncertainty and worry and anxiety about what might happen that it creates all this guilt around what we should have done to be more prepared for something like this. So they're linked, right? And if we're not careful, we'll spend so much of our time looking at the story of the past for evidence of why we don't matter, right? And why we're not enough. And we'll look to the evidence of the past for guilt and shame and pain. And then we'll look to the future for fear and anxiety and worry. And we'll spend so much time in the pain of the past and the worry of the future that we're not living in the one place where life is actually happening, which is right now. So what I'm encouraging everyone to do is let's look to the past in times like this, but only for the evidence of why we're so amazing. And only for the stories of times where we've overcome. Yeah, let's go back and revisit the hard things, but then let's look to the future. Let's only be looking to the future right now for what we're committed to creating, right? And the possibility of like who we're going to be. And then let's look at the present as how am I going to show up right now as a leader? So I believe if those three things, look into the past for all the evidence of why I matter and I'm an overcomer, look into the future for what I'm committed to creating, and I'm looking in the present, living in the present for who I'm committed to being right now as a leader. That's taking authorship as that's taking ownership as the author of your story. Like that's picking up the pen and not letting any circumstances be done to us, right? So thank you for coming on, Teresa. That was incredible. And I would just encourage you to share this story. Like you have a story that can make a difference. You have a story that can show other people they can do hard things. You have a story that can connect people. And like, you can really lead with this story. Yeah. Thank you. It's amazing. Okay. So we had a couple questions. One from Facebook. Jamie says, what if I just have a really hard time figuring out what this could be? Am I not digging deep enough or trying to hide what is really going on? Jamie, I think it's pretty natural for us to kind of sometimes maybe avoid or shy away from like looking at our past. But I think, you could be trying to shy away from it. It could be that you're not digging deep enough, but I think all of us, now I'm going to tie this into someone else's question. Someone just asked, Julie asked, what if you don't have a hard story? Julie, are you willing to come on with me on live? I would bring Jamie on, but she's on Facebook. But Julie, I could bring you on live. Are you willing to come on with me? And we can talk about this. Now all right, Julie, when you're ready, just take yourself off mute and turn your camera on. Here's what I've noticed about our human condition is every time I take someone through this exercise, it's super easy for most people to find a time in their life where they faced a challenge. Not always for everyone, but most people, it's pretty easy to find a time in their life where they face a challenge. It's pretty easy for them to kind of like live and bring up like the emotions they felt at that time. It's a little bit more difficult, but still easy to talk about how they overcame it. But when I ask them to say what they realized about themselves and really acknowledge themselves, it's hard for them. Like they have a hard time saying out loud, I realized I'm amazing. I realized I'm a fighter. I realized I can overcome anything. I realized how much I matter. Like we have this warped view of that somehow that's egotistical or selfish or making about us. And my belief is that when you say things like I realized how much I matter. I realized how big of a difference I could make. I realized how incredible I am. That what that really means is like, you can make a difference for a lot of people. It's actually one of the most unselfish things that you can say. Oh, Julie, you on? There she is. Hey, Julie, your camera's on. Looks like it's a little high. I can't quite see you.
Hi, there.
There you are.
Hi.
How are you?
I accidentally pushed the wrong button and left the meeting.
Oh, well, hey, we're glad to have you back. I was like, I hope Julie didn't get stage fright and exit left for us. Okay, so Julie, when you say
that,
when you say, what if I don't have a hard story? What do you mean by that?
what I mean is you seem to be coming up with stories that are pretty heart-wrenching, that really something difficult. What if our life has been not that hard and we don't have something that's really heart-wrenching to share?
Yeah, that's only come up about 1,000 times, that question with my clients, because I've been doing this for, I've served hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs. So they're like, what if I don't have this it's almost like somehow they feel like if they don't have a really tough story, that their story doesn't matter as much. And the first thing that like Allie, our head coach with the Campfire, she always wants to tell people is, if someone's like, well, I don't have a really difficult story, it's good for you. That's an awesome thing, right? That you haven't had to go through. But it also doesn't make your story any less. And I always joke with people, it's like, well, we could go out in the parking lot and like cut off the end of your pinky, or something that's not too terrible, but like you'll still have a hard story, right? But my point in saying that, Julie, is like hard can be like its own things. I think maybe the thing that people get caught up on is like comparing their hard to someone else's hard. The point being, Julie, is like whether it was a circumstance or like a mindset, or has there ever been a time in your life where you faced something? Now, don't judge it against someone else's, like, well, it wasn't as hard as theirs. Like, if this is your story, has there ever been a time in your life where you faced something that you really didn't believe you could get through?
Yeah, there was a time.
Would you be willing to share it with us?
Yeah, there was a time when I had a stillborn, and then 2 months to the day after that, my dad fell out of a tree and to his death. And so I had a couple of really big losses, and suddenly I found myself in a dark place, a depression, where I had always been a very naturally happy person. And so I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know how to get out of it. And it lasted for probably about 9 months. And in that time, I really didn't accomplish anything, including dishes, laundry, meal prep, anything.
Yeah. And what did that do to the whole guilt, shame complex of like, yeah, like how, like, you know, made you feel like you probably felt like I'm not contributing, I'm not doing enough, had all this guilt and shame around it, those emotions, those feelings, right?
Yeah, I thought my husband should leave me, and he didn't. He stuck it out and waited for me to come back.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Like, see, because when we share things like that, I can go into my own version of like, maybe I've never had those exact circumstances, but I've never heard someone share their story of pain, struggle, or challenge where someone can't relate to some aspect of it, even if it wasn't the exact same. So that's where that connection gets created. And then, Julie, like, what did you do to, like, how did you start to come out of it? Like, was there a person, a thing, a thought, like how did you start to overcome it?
Well, I think that part of it was time helped, and that my hormones from the pregnancy and just time started to heal. But I think there were a few aha moments when all of a sudden I realized my world might crumble around me and that other people really needed me. And if I didn't pull myself out and step up, that people were not going to, my children were not going to succeed.
Mm. So one of the things that really pulled you out of it was like, it was bigger than you. It was like the welfare and the well-being of my children and their ability to succeed in life. And then what did it feel like when you got to the other side? And like, what did you realize about yourself through that?
I think the thing I mostly realized is that it was a great learning experience, because I suddenly understood people who face depression, who can't just listen to a happy song, go exercise, eat right, and just pull, just muscle their way through it. Yeah. I realized that it was a clinical problem that I could not actually overcome on my own for quite some time. And when I finally could, I realized I was a lucky one, that I could get over that hump and pull myself back to where I was before, gradually. Mm-hmm. And it gave me a great appreciation for just joy and life and happiness, and that I have that naturally. And it's given me a lot of compassion for those who can't seem to find that.
It's amazing. Can I ask, I want to ask all of you on the chat, and I'd love we have 34 people on, I'd love all of you to participate. If you, just in the stories we've heard so far, have found some aspect of it, doesn't have to be massive, can be small, have found some aspect of the challenge or the overcoming, either of any of the story, somewhat relatable, just say me. Like if in any way, shape, or form you could relate to it or find it relevant. Me. Like that's the power of story. You see that? Like at least like you have a story that matters. Like, and here's the thing though, we have this thing inside of our heads that'll go off. It'll be like, but my story doesn't really matter. My story's not that like great. My story's not that depressing. My story's not that. My story's not this. And what I love to kind of challenge people at, and it's a little bit hard medicine for people to hear sometimes though, is when we're in that moment, Lisa, of like my story this, my story that, who's the only person we're thinking about? Us. Right. It's actually, I didn't realize, I had to go through the same thing where I realized I'm actually being really selfish with my story. Here in an effort to not make it about me and not share it, I'm only making it about me. Because if I never share this story, how could it ever serve someone? And I really believe that most of us have gone through what we've gone through, not even for us. It's will we have the courage to go share that story to make a difference for other people, because a story not shared doesn't serve. And the magic of this, the magic of all this, you guys, is when you realize it's not even about you. It's your story, but it's not even about you. It's really about the people that it could serve. It's about this idea that I'm a messenger, and there's this big message out there that needs to come through me, and I'm willing to be the messenger. As hard as it is to tell it, I'm willing to be the messenger. And so what I hear you saying, Julie, is what you realized is, I realized that I really know what it's like for people who are struggling with depression. I realized that because of my experience, I could make a transformative difference for people that are going through what I went through. It's like, see, out of the struggle, out of the overcoming comes a realization, like, I can do something about this. And when we as human beings occur for ourselves and see ourselves as like people that can do something and matter, well, we typically then go do things that matter. You know what I mean?
I do. I think that my problem is I don't think it's typical in that I have an answer to how it, like, I didn't take drugs. I didn't, like, somehow it just passed. And so that's why I don't share this story, is because there's no heroism in it. There's nothing, you know what I'm saying? There isn't an answer that I can give somebody else.
Okay. So yeah, we got a couple things going on. So, there is heroism in it in the sense that you overcame it. So I don't want you to confuse that there has to be heroism in the sense of like exactly how you overcame it. And you have this magic formula you can teach everyone. No, I think you can say like, look, and here's how I overcame it. It was a combination of this, this, and this. And I was able to do it without the use of clinical drugs. I realize that's not the reality for everyone. For some people, that's really part of the path and part of the journey. And there's nothing wrong with that. So the heroism in it is that you did overcome it. And you may still be overcoming it. That's the heroism. Like there is a hero part of that story. It's that you overcame it. It's that your life looks very different than it did back then. It's that you really know what people struggle with when they go through this. It's that you can make a real difference for them. And it doesn't have to be in the exact way you did it, but by no means that I want you to discount yourself. Because again, that's our natural tendency. Our natural tendency is to not look for the reasons why we matter so much, and to not look for how amazing we are and how capable we are of making a difference for the people. Our natural tendency is to find all the little evidences as to why this isn't that great of a story, why there's no heroism in it, why this probably wouldn't help anyone. And therefore we have this amazing, beautiful story like that one that could benefit so many people that gets locked up and is never shared. So man, Julie, you have a beautiful story. Like, as someone whose family has struggled tremendously with mental health, and I have a lot of family members still in it, it's like, I would love them to hear your story. I'd love them to hear that there's hope and there's possibility for them. And I think if you go back and see like, and realize, like, I realized I am strong. I realized I can overcome difficult things. I realized I can relate to people that struggle with this. I realized I can make a difference for people that struggle with this. It's like, can all of you start to see how in doing this, it's not just about you going back and revisiting the story. It's not just about sharing it. It's also about changing the way you see yourself in it. Because if I'm Julie, I could easily see myself as someone that like, doesn't matter, story doesn't matter, not sure if I can make a difference. And just with a slight pivot, I can see myself as someone that's like, no, like I matter. My story matters. I can make a difference for people. And here's what I've realized. People that see themselves as someone that can make a difference and that matter, typically go make a difference that matters. And you matter, Julie, and your story makes a difference. So I just encourage you to go share it and continue making a difference that matters. And there's people that could really be healed and blessed by that story, because it's not about the trial. It's not about the triumph. It's not about the struggle only. It's about what we did to overcome it. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. You're amazing. Thanks for jumping on. Okay. We have several questions. I want to tackle these. These are awesome. I'm so glad you guys are jumping in. Celeste said it's really hard to be open to things that are readily close to your heart. So true. Like, Celeste, that's a much more eloquent way of saying it than I usually say it, which is you can't read the label from inside the bottle. Like, we're so close to it. Hardly any of us can see this. Hardly any of us can see the beauty in it and the mastery of like what we've done and what we've created. And hardly any of us can acknowledge like our greatness in it. And I just like the guilt and the shame that goes on in the world around this and in our own heads is like, even prior to coronavirus was at an all-time high. And then this has just thrown gasoline on the fire. And guys, I just promise you, like, just please, like, just try the experiment. Even if you don't believe it's true, try it on like a shirt and just go start sharing this story and just see what it does to people. The world is starving for messages like this right now. Okay, let's read some of these other questions. Oh, I love it. Jessica says, oh, but there is heroism in your story. I love Jessica. You saw that same thing. Okay. Shalisa, you had your hand up. Do you want to come on? And then we have a question from Amy. I've been taught to share my biggest story of connection at the end of my class. Do you agree? Amy, I don't want to judge. I don't know the full context of what you've been taught, but I just at first glance would disagree. Like, I'm going to share my biggest story of connection at the very beginning of a class or an enrollment call. So that way people really understand who I am and they listen to me from a different place. So let's say you put on an oil class, let's say it's an hour, hour and a half, and you don't share your biggest story of connection till the end. Like, they will have heard everything you say from a much different place than if you were to share it at the beginning, which, by the way, we have a framework called the signature framework of exactly how to share your story when you're presenting, like at a class or a talk. And it's intentional that we open it with the story of pain. And Amy, if it'd be helpful, I can bring you on and we can go deeper on that. There was also someone on here that said something about, I'm only 26, so I don't have a whole lot of experiences yet. I wanted to speak to that really quick. And maybe Lindsay, I'm only 26 and I have a hard time feeling like I can connect or have a story in this way because I haven't had as many experiences. So Lindsay, the thing I would point out, and we can bring you on if you want, is so here's something that I'm going to point you out, Lindsay, but I'm pointing all of us out. One of the things that we're really, good at doing as human beings is making up a story about our story. So what I would say there, Lindsay, is that's a story that you're making up, like that this thing about being 26, like I think I don't think it has to do with anything. Just because you maybe haven't had as many experiences or different experiences, you've still had experiences in your life where you faced things where you didn't feel like you could overcome them, and yet you did. And so I don't want you to make up a story about your story that because you're 26, that has something to do with like your ability to help people. Then Jen says, what if my story isn't motivating people? I've struggled finding people who have wanted to partner with me in this, but I have a good story in terms of struggle. I need to find out how to use it for my good. Yeah, Jen, I think you answered your question. It's like, somehow my story isn't motivating people, but I know that I have a story. So I think it's usually in that case, like if you recognize that you have a great story worth telling, but it's just not moving people, that's usually the mechanics. That's more the mechanics of how it's being told and how we're using it to connect. Because guys, there is a real order to this. Just like Amy's question, do I share my biggest story of connection at the end of the class? Like there's a psychology and an order. Like all of this is baked into the neuroscience of the brain and hardwiring of like how, like there's the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, and the neocortex. And all of it's at play. And so the order of story matters a lot. Like the story you open with in an enrollment call makes or breaks the enrollment call. The story you open with in a class can make or break the class. And so so it's like, if you were at the place where you were saying like, I don't even know if I have a story, well, we would start there. But if you're like, no, I know I have a good story, it's just not landing with people or it's not motivating them, that's usually more of a story structure or a story kind of cadence that we can speak to and help you with. How do I find how my story connects with the oils? Okay, Jennifer, we're going to come back to you. Shalisa, let's take you, and then Jennifer, I'll answer that question.
Hey, sorry, I don't know if I really meant to raise my hand,
but you did. So of course you meant to. The universe meant for you to.
It was kind of more of a Julie story, like resonated with me. Like, I don't know that I have like the depression story that she can share like that, but suffering from anxiety and suffering from a child who has severe clinical anxiety, and as a mom, like dealing with that and trying to share that with the world, which is hard because sometimes you internalize your child's anxiety as your problem and you're a bad parent. So I love that you guys just opened up and shared that story, because I think it just really helped me too, because we try to keep anything that has to do with mental illness, we try to keep quiet, because a lot of times for whatever reason, we feel like it's a reflection on who we are. And that's something that I've struggled with a lot, because I feel like I've had a lot of judging eyes from others because of how my son is and some of the obstacles that we've had, and just trying to figure out how to help him, but also realize this is my story and this is what I have to offer the world. And there's so many other moms out there that are dealing with the same thing. And it's just trying to get the courage to share it with others, which is hard.
Totally though. But like what you just said, Shalisha, is like powerful. It's like acknowledging, like, I know what it's like to have a child that suffers with anxiety. I know there's a lot of other mothers out there that have children who suffer with anxiety. And I know that I can serve those moms. But you're right. Then it's that courage to just say that. It's that courage to just boldly declare that and just be like unapologetically like, look, this is me. And am I perfect? No. Have I figured all this out? No. But you know what? I've done a lot of work. And I've made a real difference in my life. I've made a real difference in my son's life. It's made a difference in our relationship. And I know that I have something to offer moms. See, it's like, I think we're like a centimeter away a lot of times from just like, we know those things about ourselves, but we're just like this side of actually really owning it. We're just this side of really like you said, acknowledging like, this is my story and this is what I have to offer to share and serve the world. And it's enough. Like, you guys got to quit comparing your stories to other people's. Like that's one of our initial things when we hear some of the stories, like, oh, their story is better than mine, or like, I don't have that. It's like, no, your story is enough as it is for you. Your story is enough and it matters. It's already making a difference. It's already making a difference in your life. And so what are some things that you've realized about yourself, Shalisha, like as you have made progress with this? What are some things you've realized about yourself, like in this way of like, man, I could help other moms, like I could help families, or like, what is it you've realized about that?
I feel like I've definitely been more aware on social media when people say something that red flagged to me as anxiety, being able to reach out to them and just privately share my story with them, or be more open with them, or my little guy's joining us. Homeschooling.
Go Jazz.
At its finest, right?
That's right.
Just like realizing when I see him act out, if we're, out in public or something, and he acts out like, love this boy, but it's hard. And you get the shaming eyes from other moms, right? Like, you get this is not a 3-year-old, but sometimes he acts like it, and you get the looks or the comments that you can hear in the grocery store, just different places. And sometimes it's just finding the courage to turn around and explain to them he suffers from severe anxiety, and sometimes this is what it looks like, and just kind of being open and sharing it instead of just hurrying and putting your kid in the car and taking off to go hide, which is really hard, but it's something that I've definitely learned that is a new part of my reality, of trying to just make people aware of what anxiety is, because most people have no clue what it really is until you live it every day, and just trying really to find the courage to share it.
That's awesome. What's your son's name? What's your name, buddy?
Jaden.
Jaden? How old are you, Jaden?
11.
11. I have a son that's 11. What do you like to do? You have a Jazz hat on and you have a basketball shirt. So I'm guessing you're a basketball fan?
He is all things competitive basketball for sure.
That's amazing. Jaden, what do you think of your mom?
Huh?
What do you think about your mom?
She's nice.
She's nice?
And she works hard.
And she works hard? Do you think your mom could make a difference for other moms? You think she could help other moms and other families?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so do I. So one of the things that I believe is like, how many other moms do you think are out there, Shalisha, that maybe have these similar types of struggles in their family?
That's definitely something that I'm recognizing for sure. I think there's a lot more moms out there who are struggling with this, but they have no idea. They're where I was a year or two ago, not understanding why your kid's throwing a temper tantrum, or why life just seems so much harder than everybody else's. I think there's a lot of moms out there who struggle and they just have seriously no clue.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I'm a big believer of, you guys heard me say at the beginning of this call, like differentiation and specialization are really important in times of uncertainty. And so Shalisha, it's like, if you haven't yet, I would really encourage you to think about what would it look like for you and your doTERRA business just to go all in with only that market. Like, look, I know that my market is to serve moms who have children that struggle with anxiety. And I'm going to be the best in the world at it. And I'm going to build a brand around it. I'm going to become known for that. I'm going to share my story. And I think that if you think about it just in terms of your own story and is it good enough and should I share it, you probably won't. But I think if you can get past that and say like, and remind yourself of the difference you can make for moms and the difference you can make for other children like Jaden, it will give you the courage to share the story because you realize it's not about you. But see, like, it's almost like in going into our story, all three of you that have shared so far, Teresa, Julie, and Shalisa, it's in also what's been really profound to me in hearing your stories is it kind of also is naturally revealing who your target market is. Which again is another scary thing for a lot of us entrepreneurs. We're afraid to like go all into one market and really like declare that that's our market and that's what we're, but it's like, those are the entrepreneurs, those are the clients of mine that have the most success. It doesn't mean you can only serve that market. It doesn't mean that that's where you have to stay forever, but you could build a lot of momentum and a lot of thought leadership there. And then it's like, who has a podcast that already serves this market? Where are Facebook groups that already serve this market? Because those, I guarantee you those communities exist, and you get to show up as a leader in those communities and share your voice and share your story and talk about, yeah, we're not perfect, but we've made a lot of progress and here's the difference we're making. And you get to talk about like, look, I know what it's like to get the shaming eyes in a grocery store. I know what it's like to get the shaming comments. I can have moms be like, wow, there's someone else out there that like understands what that's like to go through that. It's awesome.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad your son came on and joined us. That was awesome. Okay, thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
Okay, we had some other questions. Jennifer says, I'm good at coming up with general big picture, but struggle with details. So this includes my story. So it's hard to pin it down. Okay, and we also had, so Jennifer, if you're open, and then Jeanette says, what story do you start with? Little story, little success, and then lend your courage is past. I want to make a difference with this product, but I feel like I may be too old and all these tech savvy people will lead. Okay, Jeanette and or Jennifer, one of you willing to, and then Jenica, I also see that your hand's raised. So we got the J's. Jeanette, Jenica, and Jennifer, your hand's raised. Do you want to go ahead and come on live? Oh, Jeanette, there you go. Jeanette, can you take yourself off mute and show your camera? And then Jennifer, I think once your hand's raised, I think Natalie and Andy might be able to like give you permission to come on. Jeanette, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you?
I'm just a little untech savvy. So how do I, start video? Look, I did two things I didn't think I could do.
See, you're killing it, Jeanette. You're not behind at all. What are you talking about? You're here. You figured out how to get on the internet. You unmuted yourself and you turned on your video. Look, you're qualified.
I don't know how Julie Brown put me into this.
So
I don't know how I got so smart.
So Jeanette, I'm just going to be really blunt and bold with you. Is that okay? Do I have permission?
Go for it.
Yeah, you just need to let go. You just need to let go of all that. You need to let go of all that crap. That's just a dumb story. And it's no different than the stories that I tell myself. I have my own dumb stories that I tell myself around like, well, I'm too old, or I'm too this, or I've waited too long. And like, we just have to realize that those are stories that aren't true. We might tell them to ourselves, but those stories aren't true. There's nothing that qualifies you or disqualifies you from being successful in this business. Doesn't have anything to do with age. Doesn't even have anything to do with your background. Doesn't have anything like, look, here's what qualifies you to make a difference in a business like this. If you believe that you have a desire to help other people and you believe in the products and that it can make a difference for people, like that's what qualifies you to be in this business.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's like your commitment to serve other people is what qualifies you.
Fears that we need to overcome when we try to share things that make a difference in our lives. I reached out to one of my friends and she's like, oh, so you're selling doTERRA? And I thought, well, not really.
Yeah.
But I'm doing so much better on doTERRA. I wanted to share it with you. So I'm trying to highlight those successes and those, I guess, just wins that I've had. And it does really give you a lot of power and strength. My biggest fear has just always been being healthy. And I think this has given me a lot of leverage as I just recently recovering from having surgery on my discs in my throat,
Wow.
and neck. And anyway, I think the Vitality Pack really has made a tremendous difference in my health. So that's kind of where I'm standing right now.
That's amazing. And so here's what I want you guys to realize too, though. And Jeanette's bringing up an amazing situation or amazing opportunity to teach here, which she's saying she reached out to a friend and her friend's initial response is, oh, so you're selling that doTERRA stuff, right? Or you're selling doTERRA. And it probably wasn't like a super positive thing.
No, it kind of put me back like, oh, geez.
A lot of times when we're in direct sales, or let's call it network marketing, I believe we allow people to push us around. Just like in my business and coaching, like people, like it's kind of funny, like people, we have like if you're going to come and go through our coaching program, we have policies around refunds. But what's interesting to me is like, there's people that can come and go through anyone's coaching program, get all the value from it, and then can later say like, well, I want my money back, and just expect the coach to do it. How's that any different than going to Home Depot and buying an oven, right? And then being like, hey, I don't like it. I want my money back. I've been using it for 7 months. It's like, well, you wouldn't do that. Like no one would do that to like a Home Depot or a Lowe's, but yet we feel like we can do it to coaches. We feel like we can do it to like direct salespeople. And honestly, a lot of times as the direct selling person or the network marketer, we allow it to happen. We allow people to kind of like illegitimize our business and push us around a little bit. And that's where it's an opportunity to take a bold stand. And so like, if we were to replay that scenario a little bit and your friend said, oh, so now you're selling doTERRA. It's like, well, yeah, I guess you could see that, like you could say it that way and someone could see it that way. But what I see is I'm simply taking something that's made a profound difference in my life and my health, and I'm sharing it with other people so they can make a profound difference in their lives and their health as well.
Yeah.
So if you want to see that as selling, then yeah, you know what I mean? But like, we don't need to like, I think a lot of times in network marketing, direct sales, we feel like we have something to apologize for, or we feel like we have something to like, we have to explain ourselves. It's like, you have nothing to apologize for. You have nothing to explain.
Right.
Like, hey, what you do is you share your truth.
Yeah.
What you just did to us without even trying, Jeanette, you told us a beautiful story of like, here's what doTERRA means to me. It's like, I've always been worried and fearful about not being in control of my health. And I feel like with doTERRA, I have more confidence and certainty around my health and my ability to take care of my health than any other time in my life. Do you think, Jeanette, there's other people in your age range and your demographic that are worried about the same things?
For sure. And
yeah,
especially right now.
So you get to be a voice of real
everybody on high alert.
Yeah. And in this time of that, to your market, your demographic, your people, similar to your age, if you wanted to pick that as your market, it doesn't have to be, but if you wanted to, you could be a real voice of hope. Because here's what's interesting, in a time like this, in a time of uncertainty, people are desperately grasping for things that they can control. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
Because there's so many things we can't. So what's interesting though is, Jeanette, what's one thing that all of us can control right now? That you just spoke to?
Our ability to stay healthy and to overcome our physical ailments, as well as the coronavirus that is everybody's jumping out of the hoops at. So just health.
Yeah. So what if you could be that voice of, look, in a world right now of uncertainty and in a world of like tremendous uncertainty for anyone over the age of 60 or 70, the one thing I believe that you can control, and in controlling it will bring a lot of happiness and well-being to every aspect of your life, is your health.
Right.
Right. And you to be able to tell your story about how you went from fearful of your health and not being able to control it to what you did to overcome that and how doTERRA played a part in that. Right. And so when you asked a really profound question of like, what story do I start with?
Right.
The story that I want everyone to start with, whether it's doing an oil class, an enrollment call, a presentation, a webinar, is you start with a story of pain, struggle, or challenge that your target market would find the most relevant and relatable.
Okay. Well,
That's
I've
the
got-
key at the end. So it's not just, yeah, it's not just sharing any story of pain, struggle, or challenge. It's sharing the most relevant and most relatable story of pain, struggle, or challenge
Right.
that your target market would raise their hands and upon hearing it and be like, that's me.
Right. And avoiding surgery and unnecessarily difficult complications from, you know, whatever it is that we have to get fixed at our age, and just, you know, like not having time to relax or to de-stress or to focus on our family the way that we would like to. And you know, the anxiety seems to be a big thing right now, so I think everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
Your help of writing it down and not resisting the emotional part of what we're trying to share is really helpful, so thank you.
Yeah, and you guys, if you want a safe place to share these before you go share them to the public and share them to the world, because I'm challenging all of you guys to get on Facebook and share these stories live, share them to your communities, but share it in your small group first. Share it in the Share Success Facebook group where you know those people and they're all in the business. Share it in your teams, right? Like there's ways to take some baby steps to like share it with a smaller group of people and then share it with the world, right? But it's identifying those stories first, realizing what it felt like to be in those, sharing those raw emotions, because that's what the other people are going through, talking about what you've done to overcome it or take control of your health and what that feels like now to be in control of your health. And I'm going to ask that people monitor Janet for me. And if you ever hear Janet bringing up the too old excuse again, I'm going to give her a virtual kick in the butt. I can't do it in person, Janet, but I can do it virtually over Zoom. Okay.
Thank you.
But see, what's so funny about that is Janet's on one end of the spectrum over here saying like, well, maybe I'm too old. Maybe I can't do this. And then I think we have Lindsay on the other extreme over here. I'm too young. And it's like, and I could say that I'm too like, whatever it is, right? It's like I promise you, if you want to find evidence as to why your story and your message doesn't matter, it will never get out there and won't serve anyone. But if we can overcome that and say, wait, this isn't about me. This isn't about me being too old, or this isn't about me being too young, or this isn't about me being too overqualified. This is simply about the difference I can make for other people. And though there is a real intentionality into the tacticals of how to share the story, which we can share more with you. And I'll talk to Natalie and Andy about that. But here's what I can tell you. If you start getting comfortable with opening with a story of pain, struggle, or challenge that the people that you want to serve can relate to, you will form this really profound connection with them in the very beginning of the conversation, which will lead to them hearing you from a very different place for the rest of the conversation. And the last thing I want to emphasize again is like, just because you're in direct sales or you're in network marketing, you have nothing to apologize for. You don't have to explain yourself. And like, you can take a bold stance for your business as a legitimate business, just like any business would.
Right. Good to hear.
Is that helpful, Janet?
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll figure out how to mute myself now.
Well, you can totally do it. You're a tech expert wizard now after this. So I'm just going to take a question really quick from Facebook, and then we'll go to Jennifer and Lindsay. Renata says, I'm overqualified and that is intimidating people. I lost my belief into this and other business. How to see the light again. I need to choose a path, and this seems impossible for me to decide where I want to put my energy, and I have so much to contribute. So Renata, I would, again, without having you live, I can't dive all the way into it, but like, to me, it's no different, Renata, than Janet's story that I'm telling her. That's maybe she's making up a story about being too old, or Lindsay making up a story about being too young, or you making up a story about being too overqualified. Like, now, because whatever it is what it is. Like, I can't change anything about my age. I can't change anything about my qualifications. What I can change, though, is I can change the way I see myself in it, and I can change how I speak to it. So Renata, what yours could be is, it sounds like you've lost a little bit of your belief and your connection to this. So it'd be one, reestablishing your belief and your connection in it. And then two, helping you see that there is a way to actually tactically say it that lands for people and doesn't have you come across as like overqualified or intimidating to people. So again, if you recognize, so two parts, Renata. First, we got to help you get reconnected back to your why and reconnected back to your belief, right? But let's say we have that in place. If that's in place and something that you're doing is having people feel like you're overqualified or having people feel that you're intimidating, that usually then is like more of a structural, like how to. Like we just need to change the way that we're positioning the story and how we're saying it, that doesn't have people feel intimidated or have you feel like overqualified to them. Or sometimes it's like a way of being, like how we're showing up in our energy, and it's not what we intend to put out, but there is this dynamic of what you say, how you say it, and then who you're being when you say it. And sometimes it's our way of being when we say it that has people experience us in a way that's inconsistent with what our actual intentions are. Okay, Jenica, do you want to take yourself off mute and come live? And I think Natalie and Andy, we've got about 15 minutes left. Is that correct?
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm not sure how to do the video. I don't know if you need that part, but
So in the bottom left.
Hold on. Ah, okay.
I love how all the women are like, I don't know if you need me to be on video. I don't know if I can avoid being on video. It's like, no, we got to get you on video because you're going to video to the world and like share your story. So this is just part of the practice. Okay, Jenica, what question did you have?
So you read mine earlier, but I said I have a story. I think I have a good story of struggle. I don't go around telling it. So you were saying the mechanics of how I'm telling it may be the difference. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not really telling it, but
okay. So then that's the difference.
But the people that I am mostly talking to already know my story. So I don't know how to they know me, they know what I've gone through. I don't know. Okay. So I'm not even sure how to phrase this question. Number one, I'm a total believer in doTERRA, in the oils, like they've just done wonders for me and my family. So I have belief, I have desire, I'm a hard worker. And I'm like, what's not connecting? Because I'm struggling finding my people to partner with me in this. And I have a great story of struggle, but I'm not really going around talking about it. And I just assume people that know me know.
Okay. Can I speak to this real quick?
Yeah.
Can you see that might be so first of all, can you see that might be a massive assumption you're making? Like you're like, I assume they know. So just being open to the idea that might be a big assumption. Okay. And do they know to the level and the depth of which you really, really like feel it, right? Secondly, it's interesting to me that essentially and it's really not interesting to me anymore. It's still interesting to me, but it's like not new. I see it every single time. Have you guys noticed that every single person I've talked to, it's by going into the story of struggle and challenge that it gets revealed who their real true target market is? And the thing I've heard you say, Jenna, because I'm looking for my people, which what you're saying is like, you're saying the same thing. We're all looking for our people. Those are the ones who are like, they don't need to be motivated. They're already committed. We can lock arms with them and sprint, right? Those are the people we want, like people we can just go build with. Are you guys open to the idea though, and the fact that you'll never find your people, at least to the degree that you could without your story?
So I'm learning that as I hear you talk, I'm like, so do I need to get, and I've been way open. I've been way big picture, and maybe I need to like hone in on people that have my struggle. I mean, so if I can tell you a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm a single mom, and that's not an unusual thing. There's lots of single moms out there. I don't know. Does that mean that I'm meant to lead single moms?
If you feel called to. So here's part of this process too. All of you, what I totally want to eradicate and lift this weight and this burden off of your shoulders, as well as every other entrepreneur and organization we ever worked with, is any feeling of should or supposed to. A funny thing that I often say is, if we're not careful, we will should all over ourselves. And we let people should all over us. You should do this. You should work with this. I should be serving everyone. I should work with, and it's like, no. Like, what if we started shifting from should to called? Who do I feel called to serve? Who's most aligned with my message? But see, we oftentimes do it backwards. We just go out and start shotgunning really wide, like you're saying, being really open to working with lots of people. And we're totally operating in that place, Jenica, from a place of opportunity. We're just like, whatever is a good opportunity, we go chase it. And we're just like the tail that wags the dog. And what I'm trying to help people do is start to operate from a place of alignment to their truth and their message rather than a place of opportunity. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I'm trying to figure out who I'm feeling called.
And you can't find out who you feel called to serve without going and really digging into who you've been and who you are and where you've come from. Guys, I can promise you, none of us want to hear this. I didn't want to hear it when I first, do you guys realize that I had to develop the Campfire Effect, then take myself through it, then teach it to other people, right? Like, I struggle with this as much or more than anyone. Was spread thin, trying to serve everyone, completely lost, didn't know what made me unique, couldn't find my people, like struggling to pay bills every month, right? Like, if you'd have told me my life would look like this, like unimaginable to me, like impossible. But what's interesting is what we're all hoping for is we're all hoping that if we can just keep working hard enough and keep like creating opportunities and keep like working with lots of people and looking to the future, that it's going to sort itself out. It never does. We have to actually do the work that a lot of us don't want to do, which is a little bit confronting, which is like we actually have to look back at who we've been and look at our lives and get really clear, which clarity is confronting because there's an element of accountability, right? But we can't be intentional and we can't operate from a place of alignment until we get clarity. And so it's like doing some of the hard, like one of my favorite quotes is by Steve Jobs. He says, we never connect the dots looking forwards. We always connect the dots looking backwards. Because the answers to all of this are in the past. But not looking to the past from a place of like guilt and shame and like why, all the reasons why I don't matter, like I talked about earlier. It's looking to the past and like just connecting the dots of like, who have I been throughout my life? What are the things that keep showing up on my path that are just there? Like my through line. We talk about this a lot. Your through line of your life and this through line of your message reveals a lot of clues as to where you're going. And so in my experience, Jenica, for us to really understand who it is we feel most called to serve, we have to look at like who we've been. And here's my experience, if you let your message create your market rather than letting your market create your message.
Okay.
So most of us have a message built to serve whatever market we've gone after and whatever opportunity we've pursued. And what I'm encouraging you to do is like, what if you led with your authentic message and just trusted that it would attract the people that are most called to hear that message, which will likely be your people.
So when I talk to somebody about doTERRA and why I love it, I mean, I'm trying to understand, like, you say you start with your point of struggle because then that you build connection. I'm trying to see what that looks like.
Okay.
I'm talking to somebody about doTERRA and I just launched into, so for me, it was going through my divorce and losing my mom, and it all happened at the same time. Anyway, sorry. That's the other thing is like, I can get raw and real, but I want to just cry all the time when I talk to people. And I'm fine. I'm in a good place. I'm still in a place of struggle though.
Yeah.
So to me, I think, well, maybe that makes me, maybe it's going to be one of those things like, hey, when I see that you get there, then come talk to me. Maybe it's that because people still see I'm in a place of struggle.
Okay. So I have to speak to this.
And I have lots of passion.
Right. But I have to speak to what you just said because it's holding you up and it's holding so many entrepreneurs up. And it's this belief though, that like, I can't speak to the struggle from a place of like overcoming it and making a difference until I'm perfect at it. And it's a huge lie that we all tell ourselves. Cause guess what? If you're waiting until you're completely on the other side of the struggle and completely over it and perfect at it, you'll be waiting a really long time because it's never going to happen. So it has nothing to do with like, I've completely overcome this and I'm perfect and I'm completely on the other side of it. What it has everything to do with is like, I've done a lot of work around it and I'm committed to continuing to do the work around it. And I'm committed to practicing what I preach. And I'm not perfect, but I'm on the journey with you and I'm willing to lead. That is hugely, wildly different than like, I've got it all figured out and I've solved it. So that is a lie that keeps us, and I can get where it comes from. It's like, how can I go teach other people this if I haven't gotten perfection in it yet? How can I go teach other people if I'm still in the struggle a little bit? And it's like, well, that's exactly why you can teach it. There's a different way of looking at that. It's like the reason I can teach this is because I know what it's like to struggle with this, right? So that's part one. Is that helpful? Just kind of a different shift of thinking about it. And you're gonna have to sit with some of these things. I'm throwing some challenging thoughts at you. The other thing though is like, think about this, Jenica, like if you lead off with how passionate you are about doTERRA and how much you love the oils and how much you care about them, you have to really think though, for someone over here, maybe on the other side of that conversation that knows nothing about doTERRA, I can't connect with any of that. I have no context of these oils and what they've done for you in your life. And so while these oils have made a profound difference in your life and the business has changed your life, to me, truly in that moment, it's no different than Amway to me. Now to you it is, but to me, like over here on this side, and perception being reality. So what my point is think of the difference of the two. Think of these two different ways I'm going to practice telling your story. I meet someone and I lead off with doTERRA and how great the oils are and how much they've made a difference in my life, all with the best of intentions, right? Versus I lead off with my story of struggle and challenge and overcoming in a way that might be relatable to theirs. Okay. Which of those two stories meets them where they're at versus forces them to come over here and try to understand where I'm at?
Yeah, for sure. Where they can relate.
So oftentimes what we're doing with the best of intentions, we're leading with a story that literally doesn't meet them where they're at, that they have no context of. And what we're asking them to do in that moment, if I lead out with, hey, let me tell you about the oils and how great they are and everything they've done for me, what we're literally telling them, Jenica, and I didn't realize this, I used to do this all the time, is we're telling them, hey, I need you to come over here and meet me where I'm at and hear my story. But if I lead with a story about who I am as a human being and what I've gone through in my life and what I'm committed to making a difference for other people, if they can relate to it at all, that has my story come over there and be like, no, stay where you're at. Let me come over there and meet you where you're at. Let me come serve you. And in that moment, instantly what they feel is they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel gotten, they feel understood, and they haven't even said anything to you yet. Imagine the power of that. Just in the story you tell. Then in somewhere in the story, sure, eventually the journey is going to lead to doTERRA and how it's such a pivotal part of all of this. But one of the things you have to realize too, Jenica, is that your story is bigger than doTERRA.
Oh, for sure.
But oftentimes we tell it as though it's not, right? We make doTERRA the central figure.
On my story, I start the way that's ineffective apparently, because I start with like my passion and I'll tell stories around the oils and what they've done for me. I will tell those stories. I'll tell about my son with ADHD and first grade, and teachers saying get on medication and didn't sit right and whatever. And I mean, I'll tell stories about the oils. I don't really tell about. I mean, and that is, I guess, that's a story of struggle, right?
Totally. But see, again, those are stories, they're cool stories, but like you just identified, they're still stories about the oils. And I'm not saying don't share the stories about the oils. We absolutely want to share the stories about the oils. We want to share the story about doTERRA. But it has to come once they've connected with us. It's literally like I wish I had I do a demonstration when I speak on stage. A lot of times I'll get a glass full of water. It's already full with water. And I'll say, here's how most of us show up around our story to people. So this glass filled with water represents most people walking around in the world, which means what? From a mental capacity, what are most people operating at, Jenica?
It's filled with water, like they're
filled.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always make the joke, like, do you think anyone's waking up in the morning, like a mom's waking up and like stretching and be like, oh, you know what? I've got so much free time and capacity today. I hope I run into someone doTERRA and they tell me about oils.
Yeah.
No, like that mom's waking up being like, I'm already at overcapacity. Like I just woke up and I'm already overwhelmed. So to think that we're going to come in and pour our message, what's it going to do? And I do this on stage, spills out over. And granted, yeah, they're over there on the other side going, yeah. Not hearing a word that we say. And it's not because they don't want to. They don't have a place to receive it from. We haven't like poured out a little bit of their water. We haven't increased their capacity to hear us. So they literally can't receive the message, literally. Like neuro like based, like they have no capacity. But if I connect with them at a human level, and Jenica tells me her story and it's like, wow, I like her. I trust her. I connect with her. You literally have increased my capacity to hear a little bit more. So now when you go tell me about the oils and you tell me about doTERRA and you pour it in, like I have a place to receive it. I can actually hear it, like truly, literally, physically, emotionally, and neuro like based. Like I can hear what you're saying. Otherwise, it's just more noise in an already noisy world.
So that all makes sense to me. I'm just trying to figure out what that looks like. I go up to people and just say, hey, listen to what I've been through. I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. So we teach this, we teach it in our enrollment narrative. It's called the enrollment narrative, and it's how to have an enrollment conversation. And the thing though that is really important, and I'm so glad you're asking these questions, Jenica, because reminding me to share some of this is like, you still have to remember though that the most important story. Okay, I've just been telling about. I spent this whole hour and 27 minutes talking about the power of sharing your story, my story, right? But now I'm going to say something to you that it's not conflicting. Yes, I want you to share all that, and never forget though the most important story that gets told in that interaction is their story. So in a one-on-one interaction, their story is still the most important story that's told. So we want to spend way more time asking them about them, their story, their family, their struggles, their challenges, what it is they want to create, right? So we're still allowing them to tell their story because that's how they connect with us. Excuse me, they connect with us through their story. So yeah, you're not just leading up and be like, hey, Chris, nice to meet you. Let me tell you my story of struggle, right? Like there's ways to like start this conversation and tell their story, and then eventually it's appropriate for you to share yours. Now, in an oil class though, when you're giving the presentation, well, you're in control of the room. You get to start with whatever story you want. So in that instance, I would lead with a story of struggle, pain, or challenge in my life that really defined me and shaped me, that put me on this path, that allowed me to discover doTERRA, right? So it's a little bit different in the structure of the how-to. When we're presenting, we can lead with our story of struggle, and then we tie it into doTERRA. There's a connection there, right? It's going to be obvious. In a one-on-one, we're going to use their story to find the most relevant parts of our own story of struggle to connect it and make it relatable. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So you're asking about them. You're getting them to kind of reveal. I find one of the easiest ways to get somebody to reveal their struggle is for you to reveal yours. I mean, when you are vulnerable, it invites vulnerability from someone else. But again, it just doesn't feel authentic to just come up to someone and just start saying yours. So I like the question asking and kind of drawing it out of them and then seeing what parts of that you can relate to.
Yeah, there's another way too, though. Like, man, I could go for hours. So I'm just trying to, like, in the given sake of time, like, how often do you have enrollment conversations, would you say, Jenica, where it's an opportunity to enroll a new leader or sell oils, like a sales / enrollment conversation? How often do you have them? An opportunity conversation.
I mean, I'm still new. I'm still brand new to the business, but we just did a study. So now I'm following up with everybody in my study. So like this last week, I think I've had 5.
Okay, awesome. Remember what I said early on the call, language is everything. Like the language we use creates what's real. Like, so most people are doing a really mediocre job of using language to frame up, hey buddy, the sales or enrollment conversation. What's his name?
Roman.
Roman, how old are you, man?
Good.
How old?
9.
9. Nice, man. Are you enjoying this time at home?
Yeah.
That's cool.
He has his twin brother down there.
Nice. That's awesome. So most of us are missing a tremendous opportunity to use language and our story to frame up the enrollment call. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm going to use language at the very beginning of the enrollment call to tell them what's going to happen in the enrollment call. Like, I don't just get on there and start willy-nillying it. Like, I get on and I say, look, my intention for this call today is to make a massive transformative difference for you and add value to you. And the best way I know how to do that is to dive in and ask you about your life, your family, your health, like find out what's working, find out what isn't working about your business and where it is you want to go. And here's the promise I'll make to you. If I believe that I can make a difference for you at any point in time in this conversation, whether it's related to your health or your business, your family, I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I would help you and what it would look like to work with me. And if it's any point in time in the conversation, I don't feel like I'd be the best one to serve you, I'll tell you that, but I'm going to still point you in a direction. I'm still going to do something to serve you in this call. How does that sound? And 100% of the time, they'll say, that sounds great. And guess what you've just done? You've just created the whole structure of how the calls, and you've asked them, and they've given you permission to enroll them. Because you've told them, if I feel like I could make a difference, it's just like we're using language to create, and then it's like, all right, so yeah, tell me about you. And then we're just right into their story. Because we've told them that's where we're going to go. And so, yes, guys, someone asked a really great question. It's like, so are you saying that, who is this? Barry said, so I'm hearing you say that you do it in a group versus on one. Yeah. Like so there's our story, but then the leveraging of that story, yeah, we use it intentionally in a one-on-one conversation differently than we would use it in a oil class. And that would be a little bit differently than when you would use it in a webinar. What's cool though is it's the same story. Like that's what I'm trying to help entrepreneurs see is you don't have to like reinvent the story every single time. It's the same story with the same structure. It's just how it gets applied.
Okay.
Was that helpful, Jenica?
So helpful. Because
Okay.
I'm not starting by my story at all.
Yeah. It's
I'm like,
and how can you know who your market is and how can you know if you're attracting your people without telling your story?
so
Right? It's like,
am I just going to start telling my story like crazy and then figure out my market as I do that?
I promise you that if you will continue to serve the team you have, obviously, and start sharing your authentic story, and don't worry about it being perfect, you will start attracting the people that like are most aligned with your authentic story. It just happens if you have faith and just do it.
Okay.
Because there's gonna and guys, when you start sharing your authentic story, see, your authentic story is not meant to be like for everyone. It should repel the wrong people or the not aligned people and like attract. So like, yeah, it's also gonna like really repel something. That's fine. It's okay. Like one of the mistakes we make as entrepreneurs is we're trying to serve way too many people. We're trying to be way too wide. And
I'm sure I'm not. Yeah.
yeah, it's narrow and deep is where we find the impact. Narrow and deep is where we find our people. But that takes faith. You know, we got to have the faith to really go all in. Okay, I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone and everyone's question. Natalie, I guess I'll turn it back over to you because I know we had 90 minutes here. And I just want to say a sincere thank you to everyone who did get on and let me workshop with you because I actually think I could sit here and talk for an hour and a half and teach, or we can teach by actually like doing it.
I love it. Thank you so much, Chris. I don't know about everybody else, but this has been massively valuable for me. Beth has been one of our top leaders that you've been working with. And her comment was, we've been working with Chris. It works, everyone. So this is, I'm just adding my huge amen that when you bring your curiosity, first of all, to your story, to where you've been and what led you to here, then you bring your certainty and your passion, man, it works. And that is what moves people. It's what inspires them to take action and to join your movement. And the story that we've been given is such a gift. If we will just mine it for all it's worth and really allow it to continue to be our teacher, right? Like there's just so much value there. So thank you, Chris, for everything you've led us with today. Again, we'll be with you the same time next Monday on how to lead in times of uncertainty. Same web address, sharesuccess.com/ready. That's also where the recording will be posted. So look forward to joining you next week.
Yeah, I hope to see everyone on here, and it will be a continuation. Like for those of you who watch the recording or on this, like it'll build off of this, and yeah, like leadership is needed right now in the world. And that's the biggest understatement of the day. So,
Amen.
thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.